Welcome to the Explainer. You know that feeling, right? That knot in your stomach, your mind just racing before a big presentation or something? We've all been there. But when does that feeling cross the line and become something more? Well, today, we're going to break down a practical guide to anxiety, what it actually is, and more importantly, what we can do about it.
So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll get right into the big question. What's the real difference between everyday stress and anxiety? From there, we'll look at just how many people feel this way. You are definitely not alone. And then we'll get practical. What can you do on your own? When is it time to get some professional help? And finally, how does it all come together to create your own path to feeling better?
All right, let's just dive right in. The very first step always is to understand what we're even dealing with. So when we use that word anxiety, what are we really talking about? You hear stress and anxiety thrown around all the time, right? And, we often use them like they're the same thing, but they're really not. And figuring out that difference, that's the key to getting a handle on them. So how in the world do we tell them apart?
Okay, so the biggest clue, the real difference, it all comes down to timing. Think of it like this. Stress is about the here and now. It's your body's immediate fight or flight reaction to a threat, like when a deadline is suddenly moved up. Anxiety, on the other hand, that's all about the future. It's that nagging worry, that what if, that can stick around long after the immediate problem is gone.
So when does that feeling of anxiety cross that line from being just a feeling to something more? Well, it's when it becomes chronic, when it gets severe, and when it really starts getting in the way of your day-to-day life. That's when mental health professionals might classify it as an anxiety disorder, which is an actual defined medical condition.
Now let's move on, because if any of this is sounding familiar to you, I want you to know one thing. You are so far from being alone in this. The scale of this, when you look at the numbers, well, it's truly staggering.
Just look at this number, 40 million. That's how many adults in the United States are dealing with an anxiety disorder. To put that in perspective, that's nearly 1 out of every 5 people. This isn't some rare thing. It's an incredibly common part of modern life for so many.
And if we zoom out and look at the whole world, that number balloons to a staggering 359 million people. This is not a regional issue, it's a shared human experience all across the globe.
But this is maybe the most important number of all. Even though we know how incredibly common anxiety is, only about 37% of adults in the US who have a disorder are actually getting treatment. That is a massive gap. It means millions and millions of people are trying to navigate this all on their own.
So that brings up the big question, what can you do? Especially if you find yourself in that majority who isn't getting formal help. Let's talk about some really powerful self-management strategies you can start using right away. Think of these as your first line of defense.
And here's the good news. For a lot of people, the journey to feeling better begins with these small but really powerful steps you can take all by yourself. And these aren't just, minor tweaks. These kinds of lifestyle adjustments can have a genuinely huge impact on your mental well-being.
And the key thing here is that these are real, tangible tools you can use. Think about it. Getting regular exercise, that releases endorphins, which are basically your brain's natural mood lifters. Simple stuff like deep breathing exercises can calm your entire nervous system down in just a few minutes. So these aren't just vague ideas. They are actual actions you can put in your toolkit starting today.
Okay, but what happens when you've tried all that and it's just not enough? That's when professional help comes in, offering structured and really effective paths forward. So let's look at the 2 main pillars here, therapy and medication.
Now, therapy is really the cornerstone of professional treatment. And it's not just about, lying on a couch and talking. It's about actively working with a trained professional to untangle your thoughts, to really understand your triggers, and to develop brand new ways of responding to them. And there are a few different really effective ways to do this. You've got cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, which is super practical and goal-oriented. It gives you actual exercises to recognize and then change those harmful thought patterns. Then there's psychotherapy, which often goes a little deeper, helping you explore the root causes and triggers of the anxiety itself.
Now, alongside therapy, medication can also play a really important role, and it's not a magic bullet or a replacement for the other strategies, but it can be an incredibly powerful tool to help manage the symptoms, which in turn can make the work you're doing in therapy even more effective.
So if you talk to a doctor, they might discuss a few main types of medication. You have some of the older options like tricyclics, and then there are the much more commonly prescribed ones, the SSRIs and SNRIs. Then you have something called benzodiazepines,
But those are used very, very carefully because they do carry a high risk of addiction and are definitely not a first-line treatment.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. What does this all mean for you, putting it all together? Let's quickly recap how all these different pieces, the self-management, the therapy, the medication, how they all fit together to form a complete approach to treatment. Probably the biggest takeaway here is this. Treatment is absolutely not a one-size-fits-all thing. It's a journey. It often starts with things you can do for yourself, those self-management strategies. Then it can be boosted by therapy, where you build new skills. And for some, it might be supported by medication, always under a doctor's guidance. It's all about finding the right combination that works for you.
And you know, this quote really just captures the whole spirit of it perfectly. Effective treatment isn't about just one thing. It's a whole package. Identifying your triggers, practicing relaxation, building that strong support system around you, and knowing that it's totally okay to ask for professional help when you need it.
So we'll leave you with this final thought. Progress doesn't have to be some giant, monumental leap. It can be a 5-minute breathing exercise. It could be sending a text to a friend you trust. It could even just be spending 10 minutes researching a therapist online. It all starts with one small step. The only question is, what will yours be?